right, kids, it's time to gather around once again. This is the We Are One, You Are Two PlayStation podcast. I am your host for all 90 episodes of this little podcast, Rob Fanzo, joined once again by the magnanimous Matt Rhodes.
Heyo.
Matt, we got a good show lined up for people this week. I do want to remind them first and foremost that you can go to Apple Podcasts, listen to us on Google Play, Stitcher, Patreon, Podbean, YouTube, everywhere. Every week by Wednesday at noon is when we shoot for. If you like what you hear and you really enjoy it, you can head over to patreon.com/weareoneyouare2 and join us as a sub for $1 a month. That's $12 a month. That's cheaper than most video games. You'll get a day early access to the podcast, as well as access to the blogs and stuff that I try to do over there as well. Plus, you'll help keep us on the air. Matt, we do have, like I said, a great show lined up for people this week. We're going to talk about some leaks from Modern Warfare. We're going to talk a little bit about Shenmue 3. We're going to talk a little bit about the NPD software sales, and, of course, cover Anthem and THQ, and because we cover THQ every few weeks. It's been a while since we heard from, I believe, THQ and Koch Media, so we're going to talk to them and talk a little bit about them, I should say. Talk a little bit about Death Stranding as well, and of course wrap it up with some Fortnite and the PlayStation blog, as we always do. First off, though, I wanted to ask how you been this week, because I haven't really talked to you a whole lot.
I've been doing pretty good. I've been busy. Haven't really had a lot of time to game. Honestly, I probably even haven't really played Rocket League or Fortnite that much this week. Maybe, I don't know, less than 5 hours maybe, which is kind of crazy for me. Yeah,
that is crazy for you. I was gonna say that's unusual.
Yeah. So, I might as well go right into what we're playing.
Yeah, might as well.
Since I've mentioned the major two. But today, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go and do some backlog binging. Some deep dive backlog binging. And I finished Far Cry 5 right before we started recording.
That's impressive.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I'm kind of mad that I waited this long to play it. And I feel like the story was pretty great. It's very dark. But you can kind of see how, things are in the world right now, and how they kind of thought, hey, let's kind of see how we can, just dig that knife into the psyche of the American people a little bit more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a little political, is what you're telling me?
Say again?
A little political in some ways?
I wouldn't say it was super political necessarily, but, there's kind of underlying tones to it for sure.
Okay. Fair enough. So that's, you dug into that today? Is that about
it? Yeah, that was, but that's pretty much all I had time for, so.
Okay. Fair enough.
But yeah, that's. I'm gonna try to do some deep diving here into my backlog to see what I can do. I want to try to maybe get Control in tonight. Maybe even some Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Whoa! Well, that you won't finish in 1 week or 1 month.
Yeah, true. What have you been playing, Rob?
Well, what have I been playing? I tackled this week a lot, and I mean a lot, of Death Stranding, to the point where I went from syncing, when we had gotten it last week and recorded last week, I had spent maybe 2 hours with it, I think 3 at most. And then I had off this week, earlier in the week, I had off Monday from work, and so I got up about 7 a.m. and sat down about 7:30, and from 7:30 to about 5 o'clock at night, I played Death Stranding. And so I sunk like 12 hours, almost 12 hours straight into the game. I'm now up at over 20 hours, I believe, is when I looked at the clock. I'm about 22 hours in, and I absolutely love it. Everyone is right. I sped through to try to get to Chapter 3, and I understand why now that is such an important piece to do. And you and I are going to eventually talk about all of Death Stranding, because we'll talk about that and possibly a couple other games as well. We'll do like a big spoilers cast. But I realize now why everybody says to get to chapter 3, and I realize now why everybody says this game, and I'm sorry, this game does take about 10 hours to get into, right? It took me about 10 hours to get to chapter 3, but once that opened up, I started getting all kinds of vehicles. I got kind of what I would call a weapon. I would loosely call a weapon. And I got a lot of experience with BTs and some of the other elements of the world. And it's addicting. I don't even know how to else explain it except that I started building my first highway. And I went to bed that night. And I woke up the next day and checked on the highway. And people had added to it. And so it was even further than what I had worked on. Huh?
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. And so, I just came across where, and this isn't really spoilery because if you've been paying attention on social media at all, you can kind of see this. Guerrilla Games threw in as a nod to their own studio, and Kojima had them throw in holograms, and some of them were from Horizon Zero Dawn.
That's awesome.
So you can see a hologram of Aloy next to a charging station. She welcomes you, or next to and there's all kinds of, I won't even spoil what the rest of them look like, but you can see stuff from Horizon Zero Dawn. And I just think that's so awesome that they did that. And so
yeah, definitely,
the game is just addicting. And I ran into a point where I didn't even care about advancing the story. I just wanted to keep delivering packages and stealing stuff from mule camps to help build. There's a section of the world where it was pretty empty, and so what I did was I built a charging station because I was almost out of fuel for the vehicle. But then I realized that, anybody else that's taking a vehicle this roundabout way is going to need that charging station. So I really fortified it so that the time fall, right, the rain wouldn't break it down right away. And so I went and got the materials to make sure I did that for people. And so that's what I really love about it. And I've been following the Reddit a lot too, and people are talking about how they just love smashing the like button to like people's structures. And so the more you upgrade and the more you level, the longer you can hit that like button and the more likes you can receive from somebody hitting the like button. So that's really cool too. And so I'm just really addicted to that gameplay loop. I'm excited to get past chapter 3, but I also just kind of enjoyed spending 5-6 hours doing stuff like that, where I forgot about the story and I just was like, hey, I need to help other people because I know they're helping me.
Did you say that it took you 10 hours to get to chapter 3?
Give or take, yes.
Okay.
Because I read somewhere that you can actually spend upwards of 20 hours before you get to chapter 3 if you do a lot of the side quests.
Wow.
Because there's so much walking involved. And this isn't really spoilery. I mean, you've seen lots of videos on it. I'm sure most people have at this point. You get vehicles starting in chapter 3. And so it makes the traversal a lot easier. And then, I think by chapter 7, you have almost a full arsenal of things you can build. And so I would encourage people to just do a little bit of side missions if they're close. That's what I've been doing if they're close. But wait till chapter 3. And I haven't gone back to the first location yet to do stuff. But in the new location I'm in where chapter 3 starts, I've been doing stuff there, side missions. And that's why I've been delayed so far. So
okay.
I'm probably going to wait till I get more equipment that I can build to go back to the opening area. Because then I'll make it really easy because I know what's ahead. But I would say that chapter 3 is definitely a prime point to, if you want to fiddle around with some side missions, that's where you jump in. So I've been playing a lot of that. I've almost finished Cuphead. At the time we get done and this podcast pops out, I'll probably finish Cuphead completely. Astral Chain a little bit, and a lot of Blasphemous too, which is a 2D, and I hate this term, it's a Metroidvania Souls-like, right? And so if you've never played Metroid Prime or you've never played Castlevania, you'd have no idea what I'm talking about, and if you've never played Souls games, you never know what I'm talking about. But it's a Metroidvania Souls-like, and so it's not very Souls-like in the beginning. The bosses actually aren't too bad, but then there's a wall that I can start to see where it's getting to be Souls-like. And I really love it. It takes a lot from Catholic mythology, or not mythology, but Catholic, what's the word I'm looking for? Just religion, I guess, right?
Yeah, lore or...
Huh?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Catholic...
I don't even know.
I guess the word would just be Catholicism.
Yeah, it just takes from Catholicism, and so it takes a lot of, the extra stuff that's not, I guess, biblical, like the rosary beads and stuff like that. And like your character wears rosary beads, but it gives him like special abilities. And you're carrying around this sword that I think, I mean, and I know somebody out there who's played is probably going to correct me, but I think like some like Virgin Mary type figure like stabbed herself with, and you've pulled it out of her when she turned to stone. And so it's like this really weird stuff. It takes and like twists it on its head, right? And so there's like these people that, you have to like, you're called the miraculous one or the miracle one, and you have to look for penance and stuff like that. And so it's really bizarre. It takes like all that terminology and throws it into a game, but I really love it. It's first off, it's a great like hack and slash Souls-like game. It's a lot of fun to play. And two, it's just so creepy. Because of the way it's spun, like the bosses are creepy, the characters are creepy. It reminds me a lot of, what was the guy from Silent Hill 2? The Pyramid Head guy.
Okay, yeah.
That's what your main character reminds me of a little bit.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm enjoying that a lot. And then I fired up Jedi Fallen Order. I only played the first 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. You can tell you're playing a Respawn game because the movement's very fluid.
Right.
It's got a lot of cutscenes. I can't get the kid from Shameless out of my head every time I look at the protagonist. Like I look at him and I see Shameless, and so I'm having a hard time with that. To be honest, I'm sure as I go through the game, I'll shake that off. But there's sometimes there's a limit to this facial technology, motion capture tech that's used in games now. And so like I'm okay with Mads Mikkelsen in Death Stranding and Norman Reedus in Death Stranding because I see them. I don't see Walking Dead. I don't see Hannibal. Right? I don't see them. But for whatever reason, I can't get this kid out of my head from Shameless. That's what I think every time I look at him. But
well, I mean, I feel like there's definitely people out there that would be like, all I can see is Norman Reedus in Walking Dead. You know what I mean?
Oh, I'm sure there are. Yeah, I'm sure there are. I think it's because I've seen him in other films and stuff. He was in what was that one with the twin brothers, where they were Boston. They went against like the Boston Mafia. They were two saints. It's an old movie. I can't think of what it's called. Boondock Saints. That's it.
So you talk about Boondock Saints?
Yeah, Boondock Saints. Norman Reedus was one of them, right?
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, he was. He was one of the characters, if I remember correctly. I'm 99% sure on that. I'll have to double check that. But anyway, I've seen these guys in other stuff, and so that's why it doesn't bother me as much. I've never seen this kid in anything else but Shameless, and so I'm having a hard time there. But anyway, it seems like it's going to be very good. I'm excited to try it out. I'm excited to see what it's like. I'm excited to try and balance that and Death Stranding and Luigi's Mansion, which I need to get back to, but we'll see how it goes. So that's what I've been playing. That's the long-winded version. I had to rant about Death Stranding a little bit.
You are correct. So Sean Patrick Flannery and Norman Reedus in Boondock Saints.
Yeah. Yep. He was very young in that role, so...
Yeah.
It doesn't even look like him if you see him,
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
Yeah, because I remember I went back and watched that movie, and I was like, why does he look so familiar? And I looked it up, and I was like, that's Norman Reedus. That's Walking Dead. That's so bizarre. So, a little bit of, knowledge drop there. All right.
Nice.
So,
real quick, you mentioned Cuphead. Sure. Where are you in Cuphead?
I'm at that where you have to roll the dice.
Okay, you're in the same spot then. Okay.
Yeah, and so I
love how you like I'm almost finished, but you're really not. Believe me. Once you sink 5 hours into that one level and still haven't beaten it.
So here's the funny part, right? I got through all the way to the boss, all those bosses, and all I had to roll was a 1 or a 2. No, I had to roll a 2, I think, to get to the end where it says finish, right?
Mm-hmm.
I rolled a 3 or something like that, or a 1. Mm-hmm. I rolled whatever it is that takes you all the way back to the beginning.
It would have been the 1 because the start over is between.
Yeah. I rolled a 1. It sent me all the way back to the beginning. I somehow managed to click the dice all the way, so I landed on every spot I had landed on previously.
Nice.
and I made it all the way to the end, and then I died on that last boss. The dice head. I died on him, right? And so I was so frustrated.
I have not been able to crack him yet. The problem is it takes so long to get to him. It's very hard to understand his movements quickly.
Yeah, well, what screwed up with me was I only had 1 HP left by the time I got to him. And so, like, his first thing where I didn't know the movement perfectly, boom, I was done. And so that last fight lasted about 10 seconds because I had no idea what to expect.
Yeah, exactly.
And I haven't made it back to him yet since, but I've also not sunk more than probably 30 or 40 minutes into Cuphead trying to do that. And so, most of those bosses I've got pretty memorized at this point on the way over. And I kind of know my path that I like to take every time. It's just a matter of actually getting to him, because what ends up happening is I get interrupted, or one of those bosses that I take for granted. I'm kind of like halving it because I'm like, I got this. I've done this 3 times already, 4 times and beaten him. And then they whittle me away, and then I get to the next one, they whittle away. So I'll get there.
I don't know if you know this or not, but there are little hearts above some of them.
Yes, and I've been using those to try and get there.
Yeah, that's why I don't take the same path. I normally just kind of follow the hearts because I feel like I've played all of them enough that it doesn't matter. I just need the extra hit points.
Yeah, and I think I guess that's maybe what I meant by the same path, is I know I try to shoot for those hearts and the safe spaces. That's the 2 things I shoot for when I can. And so that's the path I try to follow, whatever order that is laid out in. So it's tough. It's not the most enjoyable, but I actually still enjoy beating some of those bosses over and over again, because some of them aren't bad. Some of them aren't terrible at all. There's one that I can't stand, and that's the martini glasses.
Oh, really? That one's easy.
It's easy once you figure out that... what I was worried about was I didn't realize that once you destroyed one of them, the other 2 kept going, but you didn't have to worry about that certain attack. And so I was trying to hit all 3 of them equally. And I was dying because the one attack, when they shoot down across the screen and he shoots vertically from the top of the screen, I was having a hard time dodging both of those drinks, I guess, at once. And so once I figured out that I could take one of them out really quickly, I did that. But I think I was so busy hopping around trying to hit them all that I didn't realize that when one went, So it worked out, though. I've gotten past that boss now, but I'm enjoying it, and so I'll get there eventually.
Mine is the rabbit in the hat.
Oh, I didn't even talk to me about him.
I hate that one.
When I see him, I flip my lid. Because like, I cannot do you. The way those things close in, I never know where the opening's going to be. Yeah. Sometimes I swear it's on the bottom of the screen, and you're like, I have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And so I have yet to figure out that. I mean, other than the dash through ability, right?
A small hack for that. Yeah, but dash doesn't let you go through things unless you have that perk listed. But what I would say is a small hint for that, like, circular thing, is get on the card in the center of the screen, because that way, if it's if the thing's below you, you can just dodge. You can fall through it. Or if it's above you, you can go. Like, if it's in one of, like, the corners, you're screwed. But
that's typically what happens to me.
If it's left, right, up, or down, you can get through the hole properly.
Yeah, that's where I'm typically screwed. Is it's like the corner. I'm like, come on, I'm on the card. Can't you put it at least somewhere where I can dodge?
Right.
But yeah, I don't even talk about the rabbit with the hat. I forget that boss exists, and I try very hard to make sure I avoid that. I think I know which one that typically is in terms of the odds, because the odds, I think, correlate with the difficulty of the boss.
Yeah.
And so I try to avoid that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fair.
Yeah.
All right, we should move on.
Let's move on. Now that we're 20 minutes in, we're talking about what we've played. So let's talk about some of the stuff you might have missed this week. So I'm going to start with the first one, a massive Call of Duty Modern Warfare leak. Seemingly data mined has hit Reddit. User Senescalo has supposedly uncovered just about everything that you'd want to know in regards to the game's long-rumored Battle Royale mode, Matt. And this is what really intrigues me. There are map regions, landmarks, match settings, gameplay mechanics, weapons, the whole shebang. However, the big marketing bullet point that Activision and Infinity Ward will probably use to push that mode is supposedly going to support not 100, but 200 players.
That's insane.
So the Battle Royale map is suitably gigantic. It's made up of 15 large zones and sounds like it's pretty varied. But it sounds like instead of doing the 100 Battle Royale mode, they will have 200.
That's absolutely nuts.
I cannot believe we're seeing that on these systems. I could expect that maybe from a PS5, but PS4, I think that's really pushing it.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do it, but we'll see.
Me either. Yeah, I'm excited to see that. So I thought we'd start off with that because that was kind of a big deal. I just saw that today. Speaking of less than big deals, though, Shenmue 3 launches on November 19th. But, of course, if you're receiving a review code from publisher Deep Silver, you're going to have to wait until November 21st in order to cover the title. The company has set an embargo release date of November 21st, preventing press from scoring the long-awaited sequel until 2 days after launch. Now, typically we go, that does not spell good news for a title, right? When that happens.
Right.
However, you and I were both wrong on last week's podcast about when the review scores would release for Jedi Fallen Order. They were not allowed to release until midnight on the 14th going into the 15th, the day of the game's release. And it currently, I believe, sits at an 83 on Metacritic, which is still, I think, a pretty good score.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say anything above a 70 is pretty good because I was talking about this on Twitter, and we can rant about this later maybe. But a lot of the games I've played this year have scored like in the 70s, and they've been some of my favorite games of the year. But, so I just wanted to kind of say that because I mark my words, if you listen to a lot of podcasts and you read a lot of news, mark my words that a lot of people are going to say this doesn't bode well for Shenmue 3, that the fact that they're waiting 2 days after the release date to make people talk about the game, says they don't have confidence in it, da-da-da. I don't think it means anything. I just wanted to point that out. I'm not worried about it. And I also think that a niche game like that, the review copies aren't going to sell more. Do you have any interest in Shenmue 3?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, and if it got a 95 on Metacritic, would you have more interest in Shenmue 3?
No.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, like, just in, like, and I feel like I've mentioned this before on this podcast too, like, be your own person, make your own decisions. I mean, certainly if you're kind of on the fence, maybe look up some reviews to kind of like get you over the fence or, make you not spend the money. But I'm certainly a huge proponent of, I'm going to make my own decision about this game if I want to play it that bad.
I am too. I'm very much, in fact, I will tell you that probably the last, I'd say the last 10 games I purchased this year, unless it was something like Death Stranding, where because of the podcast and us covering it, or Jedi Fallen Order because of the podcast and us covering it, I haven't looked at the Metacritic scores until I've started playing the game.
Yeah.
And I looked at them for Fallen Order and I looked at them for Death Stranding, but I already had decided I was purchasing and playing those. So, Blasphemous, I've never looked at the Metacritic scores. Code Vein, I looked at them after I beat the game. Remnant from the Ashes, I looked at after I had beaten the game. I just didn't care. And so, I would not, I agree with you on that. I would just, let it do you, and whatever you decide, make it your choice.
Yeah.
All right. So, the speculation has started, Matt, surrounding Sony Microsoft's next-gen consoles. We know pretty much everything there needs to know, minus one or two things about the PlayStation 5 and the next Xbox. But the most common of the questions that are still left is the cost. And so we're not going to have confirmation until some point next year, I'm sure. But Xbox boss, and I thought this was worth covering because it ties into PlayStation 5, Phil Spencer said that his company's device will go toe-to-toe with PS5. Quote, "We will not be out of the position on power or price," he told The Verge. And then I believe Okay. He also said, if you remember the beginning of this generation, we were $100 more expensive, and yes, we were less powerful. And we started Project Scarlet with this leadership team in place with a goal of having market success. And so, if you remember correctly, PS3 was infamously $5.99. Xbox One was $4.99. And so both of those consoles suffered in the beginning. And so Microsoft and Sony seem to be well aware that they both need to have competitive pricing, and that one cannot be lower or higher, or I should say it shouldn't be higher than the other. Which, if you read in between that and you think about what happened with PlayStation 3 at $5.99 and Xbox One at $4.99, do you think we see them keep these cheaper and keep them at $3.99 price point?
Ah, man, I don't know. I mean, if it's a quality system, it's a quality system.
Justify that.
Say again?
I know we talked about the tech being hard to justify that.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like with the tech, like, unless they're coming up with like proprietary things, like there's that, that article I sent you about the cartridges.
Yes, and we were going to talk about that today. In fact, let's just talk about that right now, and we'll tie that in.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's an interesting thing that, because the first, I sent you two articles. One was just about the cartridges and, like, them finding a patent for them. But then another article suggested that the cartridges might just be like solid-state drives that you can kind of interchange out the system with, which would be very interesting, in my opinion, because then there's no kind of storage issue, right? You can just kind of have 2-3 cartridges that are terabyte or 2 terabytes or whatever, and kind of know what games are on those cartridges and just pop it in and pop the other one out. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. So for people who don't know, there was a patent revealed earlier this week, and it's obviously last week by the time you listen to this podcast, that suggested that Sony was working on some sort of patent for cartridges, and no one knows what they are. But then I can't remember who it was, and I think I have it somewhere in here, came up with the concept that this could be, as you were talking about, and I'm looking to see who it was right now, that this could actually be cartridges that are... Oh, you know what? Let me find it. Here it is. Let's go digital.
Let's go digital.
Yeah, suggested that perhaps you could buy more storage with SSD cartridges, and that's what those might be, since PS5 may only come with a little bit of memory on board. Now, if we think about this, solid-state drives are typically pricey.
Yeah, exactly.
And so one way they could keep the price down would be to give you a tiny, maybe terabyte SSD, and then say, here's the deal. We'll sell 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 3 terabyte cartridges that you plug in that act as solid-state drives that allow you to actually... upgrade your system storage, or that you could switch out, and kind of like the Vita memory cards, right, or the Switch cards. The only problem is that we know Sony's track record with proprietary software is that they overcharge for it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what killed the Vita. That's what I struggled with my Vita, was I didn't want to pay that much money for a memory card when it came out.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I'm hoping that Sony learned from that, and if they are going to do this, that it's not going to be pricey. That they'll just make this a standard price thing that's exclusive to their console. Right?
I mean, that certainly would be nice.
Yeah. And so just to give some ideas here of people, a Samsung 860 solid-state drive costs $174 for 1 terabyte, $383 for 2 terabytes, and 4 terabyte storage is around $1,000. And so if the console is going to be less than $500, it'll probably have a 1 terabyte. If it's going to be less than $400, it'll probably have a 500 gig. I wouldn't be surprised if it has like a 500
No,
gig.
It's not going to have that low.
You don't think so? You don't think that they sell these to sell the console cheap? They don't.
No, I don't think they can afford to go that low.
I don't think they can either.
People won't buy it.
I don't think they can either, but you never know. Because here's the other thing that I've listened to on a lot of podcasts. We haven't really talked about it on here, but the fact that the way that the PS5 processes games and the way that some of the technology is advancing with some of these engines, there is a potential actually for and I'd have to look up the specifics, there's a potential for some of the games to actually shrink a little bit next gen.
We talked about that a little bit. Or at least you and I talked about it off the podcast.
What was that?
I said we talked about that a little bit. I don't know if it was me and you just like in a regular conversation, but I can't
remember either.
Or if it was on the podcast itself. But, I mean, we talked a little bit about, oh, yeah, because when it was that huge reveal, I had mentioned that I thought I had read an article that suggested that the size would kind of drop because they can kind of like, they wouldn't have to go through their little hacks or whatever, basically.
Right. So I think it's too early for us to have a definitive thing one way or the other. I think you're right, though. I think that 500 gigs would be too small. But if this cartridge thing ends up being anything, because remember, it is just a rumor and it could materialize into nothing, I do think that means that we get a smaller hard drive. I still think maybe a terabyte's probably the smallest they'll go. But I also think it depends on what price point they want to hit. And that's my interest and concern. I'm not sure what price point they're going to want to hit. So we'll see.
Or maybe they have two price points. And if it is a cartridge thing, maybe, you get 1 terabyte for one price and 2 terabytes or 3 terabytes for the other price.
Possibly. I don't know. This is all interesting to me because the other thing is, remember we talked about this last week, how Sony admitted that they want people to transition over to the PlayStation 5 faster than any other console in the past.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you cannot have a $499 or a $599 price tag. And I think Microsoft recognized how that bit them in the butt this gen, and Sony saw that the gen before. And so it makes me really think that $399 is probably going to be what they're shooting for. And whatever they need to do, whether it's a trade-in program, whether it's reduced memory, whatever it might be, it's going to be something to make sure that price point is down. I'll posit this and tell me if you think I'm crazy.
Well, I already think you're crazy, so.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so crazy for this idea. I posit that they come out with a SKU that has no solid state drive for cheaper, and then you can purchase whatever size you want to dictate the price you pay on top of that.
Wow. I didn't even thought about that.
I don't think that's going to happen, but that would be interesting.
I mean, that certainly would be interesting.
That wouldn't happen because you need something for the operating system to run on.
Right. I feel like there would have to be at least some kind of minimum just for the op. But however, having said that, if they're going to do interchangeable cartridges anyways, there would have to be a system in place for the operating system anyways.
So
right?
maybe you do something like the Switch, where you have like a 32 or 64 gigabyte operating system drive in there, and then the rest of your memory is swappable.
Yeah.
Maybe they take a page out of Switch's book. I, again, don't foresee that happening, and that would blow my mind if they did that, but I could see that as a potential. So
yeah, especially if like this whiff of cartridges stuff has any kind of solid ground to stand on. I mean, that would make the most sense to me. It's like or 250 just because of the operating, and then you have interchangeable drives.
Yeah, and then you can keep your price way down. People, if they want to upgrade to a certain size storage drive, that's just part of the system. I don't know. I don't know if that's a hard sell or not. I don't know how. I think the only problem that Sony has going against them is people roll their eyes and go, another PlayStation Vita. Right? Especially if those solid state drives are overpriced.
Yeah, so I guess.
We'll see what happens. Too early to speculate. We'll find out. We'll find out in 6 months, for sure.
We shall see.
All right, Matt. I want to go through the NPD software top 20 for October of 2019. I always love seeing this stuff because not only is number one Call of Duty Modern Warfare, it is also the top-selling game of the year.
That's great.
Yes, it is. Followed by NBA 2K20, Madden NFL 20, Borderlands 3, Mortal Kombat 11, Kingdom Hearts 3, The Division 2, Anthem at number 8, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate at number 9, and Grand Theft Auto at 10 for the top 10 selling games of 2019 so far.
That's really absurd.
Auto 5 was what, 2015?
Yeah, I think something like that.
Still cracking the top 10. So anyway, good for Call of Duty and NBA 2K. Those two behemoths are going to battle it out, I guess, for the best-selling game of the year. Let's look at, though, just the top 20 for October of 2019. Call of Duty, number 2, The Outer Worlds. They've got to be jumping for joy over there about that, Obsidian.
Oh, 100. Yeah, they should.
To slide in underneath Call of Duty, which we knew was going to be there. They basically were the top-selling game that wasn't a Call of Duty, right, for October. Luigi's Mansion, of course, Madden NFL, NBA 2K20, Ghost Recon, which surprised me at number 6. WWE 2K20, I guess people didn't care about the glitch fest that it was.
Well, I feel like for both of those, number 6 and 7, Breakpoint and 2K20, it's people who had already purchased it before they realized how crappy it was.
I also think that we're very informed consumers, and I think a lot of people that I interact with on Twitter are. You also have a lot of people who just go out there and they're like, oh, a new wrestling game. Oh, a new Ghost Recon game. Do you know what I mean? And they go out and they purchase it because they see it in store. And so, if you ever go to a GameStop sometimes and watch the people who walk in there, they're not all very consumed with media like we are or knowledgeable like we are. They walk in there and they see what's in the store still. That still very much happens. Number 8, FIFA 29, Borderlands 3. Number 10, Ring Fit Adventure on Switch, which I thought was cool. 11, Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening. 8, Mario Kart. 8, Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto 5, Mortal Kombat 11, Overwatch, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Number 18, still hanging on, Code Vein. That game is sounding like gangbusters compared to what I thought it would. Red Dead Redemption 2 at number 19, and Breath of the Wild rounding out at number 20. The NPD PS4 software top 10 of October 19, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Outer Worlds, NBA, Madden, Recon Breakpoint, 2K20, FIFA 20, Borderlands 3, Mortal Kombat 11, and Grand Theft Auto 5 again. So, what's interesting to me is that on the NPD software top 20, Grand Theft Auto is number 14. It's number 10, right, for best-selling game of the year as well as for PS4 software. So it's definitely up there, right, on all those lists.
Yeah, for sure.
For a 5-year-old game. Speaking of games that aren't on that list, no, Anthem is, I'm sorry. Let's talk about number 8, Anthem. Anthem's incredibly rocky road from launch to the game to a handful of people that might actually still be playing it is documented. According to Jason Schreier, who is pretty reliable, right? He mentioned that they are completely overhauling the entire experience, and it's been dubbed internally by the team as Anthem Next or Anthem 2.0. And so BioWare is planning on completely changing the game's mission structure, loot, and open world. Quote, we spent a few months just tearing it down and figuring out what needed to change fundamentally. And we've been rebuilding for another few months since. And so it's, end quote. And so it sounds like they're trying to pull a Final Fantasy where, right, Final Fantasy 15 or 14 was poorly received, and they basically rebooted the experience a year later, and people loved it. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see.
Does this have you interested at all?
Color me skeptical.
I will color that. I'll color in the lines on that one. All right. This next one, I watched the trailer today. I thought it was pretty cool. Indie label Raw Fury announced West of Dead, a stylish twin-stick action game coming to PlayStation 4 next year. You'll play as William Mason, a deceased gunslinger who's stuck in a world between life and death. Blast your way through procedurally generated levels, fending off evil souls in purgatory. So that looks cool. It's cel-shaded. in its art style. And it looks like it has ricocheting bullets, which I thought was really cool too. Oh, and Ron Perlman, Mr. Hellboy himself, plays the lead character.
Nice.
All right. Speaking of charts that we were talking about before, Obsidian's Outer Worlds has done rather well for itself ever since its October launch, exceeding expectations. And so it sounds like in an interview with Eurogamer, Obsidian still has a team working on post-launch support and content for the game. Quote, people are obviously loving Outer Worlds, and we made it because we love it, so now we get to keep on doing things to help support it. So I wonder if this was one of those things where they had ideas for DLC, and they were kind of, Microsoft, since they own them, were like, well, why don't you guys wait? Because we may want you to start on your next project. Why don't you wait and see? Because they've got other projects going. They said, leave a small team behind, and if it does well, you guys can execute these plans. And so I'm curious how that conversation went, but it sounds like the sale of it, or the sales, influenced them to go ahead and continue to work on it. And so you will be getting Outer Worlds DLC, it sounds like, if you were clamoring for that. Right?
Yeah.
Because the key word of that quote is, so now we get to keep doing things to help support it. And so it sounds like it was in a holding pattern to see how it went commercially. All right. Matt, I know you've been down in the dumps. I know you've been struggling emotionally with this. It has been almost a month, probably, since we talked about THQ Nordic.
I have been. I've been. I feel like an abandoned lover.
Yeah, I know. That's
we were talking about them for so many weeks.
And you did tell me that was why you went to the gym today, to run off your frustrations. So
yeah, 100%.
I wanted to know, I could have saved you a gym trip had we recorded earlier. But we've known since August that a new Saints Row game is in development. It's been a long time coming since we saw 4 back in 2013. We've seen it remastered on PS4. We've seen it out of touch Agents of Mayhem's try to fulfill that gap. But speaking to games industry this past week, Koch Media CEO Clemens Kundratitz reckons that Agents of Mayhem's poor performance won't have an impact on the new Saints Row game, even though the same developer, Volition, is behind it. Saints Row, Saint Row, the two games are very similar for sure, but they're also completely different. With Volition, we have creators of all the Saint Row's games as an internal studio, and they're not going to be distracted by anything else from creating our next game under this important franchise. Of course, Volition and Koch Media are, all connected with THQ Nordic. And so he said, quote, Saint Row is very close to our hearts, and we'll talk about it next year. For the time being, we wanted to get the word out that it's coming, and it's going to be great. So I thought I would mention that. And then my other article, because Clemens must have just been talking people's ear off this week, he mentioned Dead Island 2, which recently moved to its third studio. And he said in that same interview, I'm assuming, that, quote, look, Dead Island is a very important brand. You'll notice some very importance come in again here. Very important brand for us, and we've got to get it right. It's just a testimony of our dedication to get it right. It's a great story to tell everyone that it's on its third studio. I don't know how you see that as a great story. But we like to be judged on the end result, and we're really confident that when it comes out, it's going to be a kick-ass zombie game. I'd like to pretend that they're waiting to see what Dying Light 2 does. Right?
Yeah, right.
And then they'll be like, because I think that's what stopped them from releasing Dead Island 2. They saw what Dying Light did, and they're like, oh, shoot, people love that. We are not like that at all. It won't be launching in close proximity to Dying Light 2, which that window got narrowed down to like May or June of 2020 next year. And so it sounds like we won't get Dead Island 2 for probably at least sometime till the end of 2020, maybe the beginning of 2021. Still talking, Koch Media and THQ Nordic. Still talking about those guys. A new Time Splitter game is apparently very much on the cards. And co-creator, had joined the publisher to work on the return of the series. And in that same interview with the CEO, he said that Ellis and his team are, quote, exploring ways to bring Time Splitters back. And he also said, I'm sorry, I lost my place here. I just scrolled down. We're very cognizant of the fact we're not building games for the past. We're building them for future audiences. Future audiences have completely different expectations and other games to play than they had 15, 20 years ago. I say stay tuned on what we're going to come up with. And so he had plenty to talk about this week, it sounds like, with what THQ and its various studios are up to.
Such a chatty Cathy, if you will.
It is, but you figure they own like 67 studios now, so he's got to say something at some point, right?
True.
So moving on from all of that, I did skip over a story to touch on all of those in sequence, and all it was that on the Japanese PlayStation Store, as spotted on Reddit. Do you remember Mighty Number 9 coming out? It was like the Mega Man clone. It had like a really successful Kickstarter, and they were super excited about it. It was published by Deep Silver, and then all of a sudden, when it came out, people were like, "Oh, this is a garbage Mighty Number 9. This is a garbage Mega Man clone." Well, anyway, if you look it up, you would realize it. What I'm talking about? It's being delisted, apparently, on the Japanese PlayStation Store. So, I'd be curious to see if it gets delisted anywhere else. It has not yet. It does have a different publisher in Japan, but it is getting delisted. So if you really, really, really want to play a terrible Mega Man clone and you haven't purchased or downloaded yet, I would hurry up and do so, just in case it gets removed here. As of this recording, I have not seen it being removed. Matt, we're also getting an Uncharted movie. I don't know if you heard about that.
What?
Yeah, we've only talked about that. I feel like that was talk for the last 10 years about Uncharted becoming a movie. In fact, do you remember who they originally hired or wanted to hire to play Nathan Drake?
No.
A little bit of trivia for you. It was Mark Wahlberg.
Oh,
well,
really?
Well, since then, Tom Holland has signed up to play the role of Nathan Drake. But now Variety reported this week that this movie has been so long in development hell that Mark Wahlberg is now in final talks to no longer play Nathan Drake, of course, because they've got Tom Holland, but to take up the role of Sully. And so I think that's hilarious.
I don't know. I don't like that, personally.
I don't like it either.
I feel like they're both too young. Maybe I'm wrong, but...
It is supposed to be a younger version of Nathan Drake. And so that would make sense to have a younger version of Sully. But I do think it's funny that Mark Wahlberg went from being the lead role of a young character to now playing the older character, and that this movie has still not come out. But we'll see what happens. I just wanted to mention that. Speaking of shows, though, I don't know if you know this, but The Witcher, we've talked about it on here before, debuts on Netflix on December 20th, a day after my birthday, and so happy birthday to me. But happy double birthday to me, because despite the fact that we haven't seen a single episode, the show has already been signed up for a second season. Netflix announced this month, or this week, that they have signed and agreed to a second season with The Witcher. So we're getting at least 2. That actually reminds me a lot of Jack Ryan on Amazon. They had just wrapped up filming season 2. It was not out yet, and they announced that they renewed it for season 3 because they were so happy with the way that season 2 turned out.
Cool.
So we're getting at least two seasons of The Witcher. And of course, I think I mentioned when we talked about it last time that Lauren Hissrich, the creator, basically said that she had 7 seasons mapped out in her head.
Yeah, we definitely talked about that.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens here. Clearly, they think it's going to be a big deal if they've already given it a go for a second season, right? They're probably going to actually start filming it while the first one's debuting so that they can roll it out, within I'd say by summertime. All right. Moving on. Let's see where we at. Oh, okay. So The Last of Us is, of course, a multiplayer offering on both PS3, or has a multiplayer offering, right, on both PS3 and PS4, and it did very well. And, of course, The Last of Us Part 2 announced that it was not going to have a multiplayer component. However, Developer Naughty Dog is obviously working on multiplayer for it, or for something very similar to it. And if you went on Twitter this week, lead game designer Vinyet Argawal backed up a Naughty Dog job listing for an online systems programmer by saying, "Join us. We've got big ambitions and we need you to help make it a reality." Probably talking about their multiplayer standalone experience that I'm sure they are going to make. Did you ever play Factions?
No.
Factions was like the one multiplayer mode in a single player game that I absolutely loved, other than Assassin's Creed. Very good. Very good. Very worth playing. I bet I sunk 10, 15 hours into it. And it was very good. So I'm super excited that they are probably going to make that a standalone thing. All right. Did you see what Kojima said this week? Because we got to talk about Death Stranding a little bit.
All right. Might as well.
So, Kojima this week. Now, I want to remind you that he speaks Japanese. This was translated for an Italian interview. And then translated again into English.
Can I just say that you read this last week? Can I just say that you read this last week?
Did I read this last week?
Yup.
You sure I didn't tell you about it?
I'm positive, because I remember that exact thing about it being translated into Italian.
I'm going to talk about it again right now. And you can sit through it. He said, quote, "In the United States, however, we have had stronger criticisms. Perhaps it's a difficult game to understand for a certain type of critic and audience. Americans are great fans of first-person shooters, and Death Stranding isn't one. It flies higher." And so I would just want to point out that the internet still took umbrage with that this week, because I still saw articles on it. And I was a little amazed that people were so up in arms in that. But he's not wrong. He's not wrong. Because we love our shooters and our Battle Royale games over here. We love our gore. I mean, do I need to go back up to the NPD's top-selling games of 2019 so far? Call of Duty, Borderlands 3, Mortal Kombat 11, The Division 2, Anthem, Grand Theft Auto 5. Do you see a thread there between those 5 or 6 games? Because I do. So,
for sure.
He definitely critiqued that, and you know what? I don't blame him. So we won't spend any more time on that, since apparently I covered it last week. But the last thing I guess I do want to wrap up with, I found this interesting. We all know that Chapter 2 of Fortnite got spoiled a little bit, right?
Yep.
Some people around September 12th, an image appeared on an official user forum for Fortnite competitions over a month ahead of Fortnite Chapter 2's launch on October 5th. Well, apparently there was an internal investigation, and they traced the image to a gentleman named Johnston, who was spotted taking screenshots on a security camera, and he was fired on September 13th. He admitted to stealing them, and so now Epic Games is taking him to court, saying he violated his NDA, and they want unspecified damages of about $85,000 from him.
Wow.
And so even though, and I get this, they're trying to protect their brand, but even though they are a billion-dollar company at this point, I'm sure, or close to it, they are going after this gentleman for $85,000.
I mean, why not?
Information. Yeah, I don't blame him. He signed an NDA, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
he signed a contract saying that he wouldn't talk about it. And the thing is, how could he have made money off of that? Like, I was watching, because I keep up with Fortnite news. I watch, I have a couple YouTube guys that I watch, and they mentioned this story as well. And, he agreed that it was like, I don't blame him for suing, especially something as game-changing as a whole new map. You want to keep that secret. You want that to be kept under wraps.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't.
That's a leak you don't want to have. You want to build up that hype.
So and for me, it's not about the money that Epix is suing for. Because they probably could actually go for more if they wanted to. Because obviously, with how much money Fortnite makes, the money he could have technically cost them, right?
Right.
Marketing or whatever. It probably could go for more. I think what's more important here is the integrity issue and the fact that he had a contract.
Yeah. I wonder if that's what they paid him and they want their money back.
Maybe. I don't know. I didn't think game testers got paid that much. But
I mean, being such a high-profile game, you never know. I mean, I feel like as a game tester, there's no way they would pay him that much money to test the game, but maybe.
Right. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I mean, I'll be curious to see if we can follow up on that later. But I did want to point that out because I think that for me, I don't care whether or not you agree with the amount of money or the fact that they're suing him. I think what you should care about is that he did break his contract and that he did. It's an integrity thing. It's a cheating thing, right? He tried to cheat their system, their honesty of doing his job, and so yeah, why not?
Yeah.
So I'm all for that, believe me. But that's the teacher in me.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Well, I have a couple actually. So before you move on, speaking of Epic Games, because you didn't include this, Epic Games acquires Quixel and its huge library of photogrammetry assets, which is it's a really cool article from I believe PC Gamer. Was it Gamer? Yeah, PC Gamer. And there's a couple cool videos on there too, using like the Unreal Engine. There's a thing called look up on YouTube Rebirth, introducing photorealism. It's insane. These kind of like video game scenarios or images that they kind of create with photorealistic images that have been taken and acquired by this Quixel. So Epic Games now has all of their library, which is Megascans currently hosts more than 10,000 assets, which is crazy. It's a library of photogrammetry assets scanned from all over the world and 3D art tools. So I don't know, as a gamer, that's exciting to me because I think of how good and amazing Death Stranding looks, and with Epic Games having that kind of those kind of assets at their disposal, I mean, I don't know. I'm excited to see what they do with it, or if they kind of release them to the public and kind of give creators a kind of leg up and give them the ability to use them, which is also because of Epic Games being kind of pro creator. I could see that happening as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, that will be interesting.
And then the last thing, and this is what's super interesting to me. Let me pull it up. Give me 1 second. Forbes released an article about Sony president and how he talked about 360 reality audio, and he didn't believe it. So there was kind of a whiff of a new audio thing that they were talking about in the very first press release about PS5. Mm-hmm. Nothing that they can go into detail with, but in my mind, I feel like this is what they're talking about, and it's this system that Sony has come up with that kind of transforms how music is heard, and kind of gives engineers and developers you can position different instruments in different locations of the room, basically, and I don't know, it creates this 360 effect around you, right? So if you were sitting in the center of an orchestra, right? Mm-hmm. If you turn your head a little bit, the woodwinds are going to be on one side, or the brass is going to be on the other side, and that kind of rotation kind of changes with you rotating as well. So it'll be very interesting to see if this is what the audio they were talking about for the PS5. But the article was kind of short and sweet about the kind of technology that they want to integrate into pretty much everything. So
okay.
So So good job, Sony, with kind of creating this new kind of way of listening to things. And I think this is kind of where they were going with those hints during that PS5 kind of first kind of press release.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I'm excited for that. I could just imagine an amazing like new headset that has this kind of technology. That'd be, I don't know. I just think it'll be awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited to see that. I know that certain games try to take advantage of 3D audio, and so I'll be curious. It's kind of like the jump from 4K to 8K. I don't know how much more of a difference it will make, but I'd be curious to see. And I'd be curious to see if it really does feel different than it is now. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see that. Yeah, I did see that. I didn't think to include that, but yeah, I will be very interested to see how much that does or does not matter, or how much that does change the game of how we listen to and think about games and the sound in games, and to see if it is a big deal or not, right? And if it's something that only certain people are going to notice because it'll be so nuanced, or if companies can really take advantage of this.
Yeah.
So, cool. All right. Anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. So yeah, let's we've spent a lot of time talking about the news this week and covering a lot of, I think, really good stuff. And so I'd say let's just go ahead and jump straight into, and I kind of figured we would. I just want to clarify that. I figured we would, so I didn't really feel the need to include a topic this week. I think though that barring any big news stories next week, I think we'll spend some time not just talking about some games we've been playing next week and maybe seeing how far we get with that stuff. But I also think I'd love to talk a little bit about trophy lists in a way that we haven't talked about them before. Because I have some gears to grind with certain types of trophy lists, but I'll save that for when we have a little bit more time. And I'll grind those gears another week in the topic. So let's just go ahead and move into See You Soon so that we can
see you soon.
Yeah, keep things going. All right, so this is See You Soon. This is where we want to acknowledge at least every game that's coming out for the week of November 19th on the PlayStation Drop and in the PlayStation Store. Matt, would you like to start this week, or shall I?
I'll start. Yeah, I'll start this week. I kind of pushed it off on you last time, so I'll do it this time.
Well, this one's very you as well.
What?
This one's very you as well.
Yes, I do like animals and stealing them. First, we got The Curious Tale of the Stolen Pets. PSVR. Experience an interactive tale of childlike wonder. Help your grandfather solve the mystery of the stolen pets by exploring wonderful miniature worlds crafted from the ground up for VR. Use a hairdryer to melt snow in a wintry landscape. Search the wreck of a pirate ship partially hidden under the surface. Every world is unique, full of interactions and colorful life. Ooh.
Not too bad. Seems interesting, yes?
Yeah.
All right. So, next we've got Debris. Debris, an atmospheric first-person narrative adventure set in a surreal seascape locked between ice and rock. Following an incident, you and your friend must find power, defeat strange and deadly creatures, and decipher what mysterious forces are attempting to prevent your escape. Escape together or die alone.
Oh. All right, up next we have Demo Reborn. PS4, PSVR digital out 11/21. Rayark's classic game Demo is reborn on the PS4 console with a brand new look. Having both TV/VR mode, this title allows you to immerse in the fantastical music performances and adventurous world explorations.
All right. Aspire PSVR digital, I guess it's Aspire 1 VR operative. The definitive VR stealth experience, Aspire VR1 VR operative, drafts players as drone operators of the future. Players become Aspire agents and use cutting-edge virtual reality hardware to remote operate the Aspire Model 1 from the safety of their control theater.
All right, Rob, this is right up your alley. Too bad you didn't get to
Yes.
announce it. Farmers Dynasty, PS4, digital out 11/21. More than just an agricultural simulation, in Farmers Dynasty, you have to rebuild your farm and develop your heritage, start a family, handle your relationships, and, of course, manage your crops to prosper. Develop your farm, your life, your family. Experience the life of a real farmer. Cultivate your fields. Ooh, I like that little sexual innuendo at the end there.
Yeah, that is good. Lost Ember comes to PS4 this week.
Lost.
Lost, what'd I say?
I think you said last.
Oh, Lost Ember. A breathtakingly beautiful world holds the secrets of its past for you and your companion to uncover. Play any animal you meet to see the world from the new perspectives and chase your destiny in the exploration adventure. Lost Ember.
Ooh, I'm excited for this next one, Rob. Mountain Rescue Simulator, PS4, digital out 11/21. When danger calls, it's down to you become what? It's down to you become. Okay, it's not me. It's the writing. This is exactly how it's written. This is not me being stupid. When danger calls, it's down to you. Become a lifesaver in Mountain Rescue Simulator. Now you and your team are in demand. Use your special vehicles such as helicopters, quad bikes, or snowcat to rescue people. That was me. Take care of broken bones or rescue lost hikers. Find and rescue mountaineers and skiers. Ooh,
that was painful.
You know what doesn't make sense to me? Helicopters is plural, quad bikes is plural, or snowcat is singular.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Why?
I don't know enough to know about snowcats.
Why?
All right. So, in case you didn't play the card game, this is kind of, I guess this was kind of interesting for that reason. Munchkin Quacked Quest is out on PS4. Dive into Munchkin Quacked Quest and rediscover the parody, puns, and humor from the hit card game Munchkin by Steve Jackson. Gather gold, throw your foes and friends into sacrifice pits, collect ducks, eliminate the monsters, and reach the highest level to win the game.
I mean, that's usually what happens. When you reach the highest level, you win the game.
Yep.
All right. Narcos, Rise of the Cartels, PS4 digital. Narcos, Rise of the Cartels is a brutal turn-based action strategy game based on the hit Netflix TV series. Explore the entire first season from two sides, each with their own unique story. Join the Narcos and expand the drug cartel empire, or take up arms with the DEA and bring it crumbling down.
All right. So, Shenmue 3 is out this week. Journey deep into rural China as you take on the role of Ryo Hazuki, a Japanese teenager hell-bent on finding his father's killer. A story of adventure, mystery, friendship, martial arts, and ultimately, revenge.
Nice. Alrighty. Sid Meier's Civilization. I said civil. Oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? I mean, it's a civilization simulation, so I was just kind of combining the two. Anyway, Sid Meier's Civilization 6, PS4, digital retail out 11/22. Explore a new land, research technology, conquer your enemies, and go head-to-head with history's most renowned leaders as you attempt to build the greatest civilization the world has ever known. Civilization 6 for PS4 includes the latest game updates and improvements, including 4 new civilizations, leaders, and scenarios. Ooh.
Cool. All right. Sniper Ghost Warrior Contracts is out. Experience pure sniper gameplay across the harsh terrain of Siberia in a brand new contracts-based system that encourages strategic thinking, playing as a silent assassin with engaging, redeployable missions.
Fun.
I didn't like the way that there should have been an and after that thinking. But anyway,
Yeah.
continue on.
Alrighty. Last but certainly not least, except for the tiny description, Stretch. PS4 digital out 11/22. Stretch Arcade is a retro-style reaction time trainer for all skill levels.
Yeah. What a way to end the blog this week.
Literally one sentence.
That is a new low. Well, if I had to recommend something, I'd probably recommend that you stick with the games you bought last week.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I mean, there's definitely people that are like, how dare you, Civilization is excitingly coming to PS4 again. And of course, there's definitely those Shenmue 3 people.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think you're right. I think play more Death Stranding, or buy Death Stranding, or buy Return of the Jedi. Buy Jedi Fallen Order, which I have not done yet, so womp womp.
I'm a little shocked about Sniper Ghost Warrior because I swore that game used to be a much bigger deal, those games. But, I've heard nothing about that one. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Maybe because it's like contracts. Maybe it's like a smaller kind of game.
I don't know. I'm going to look it up and see. I'll figure it out later. All right.
All right.
Well, that's going to wrap it up. Thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for, chatting with us and keeping us on your drive or on the toilet or wherever you might be. I guess we'll just be back next week with some more Jedi, Death Stranding, jumbly talk that we do every week. So if you like what you hear, you can find us on Apple Podcasts or other podcast services of your choice. Please leave a nice comment or review, and I'll start reading them out on the air. I will really appreciate it. I actually haven't checked that in a long time, so I know I tell people to do that every week. But if you've done it, I apologize. I haven't looked. I'm going to look this week and see if we actually have any of those. If we don't, I'm going to make one up anyway. All right.
Ooh.
Until next time, game on.
Game on. This is the Stretch outro music. It's short and sweet.
I like that. And the silence after. Good stuff.
Oh, man.